and we're going to roll. As I mentioned, I'm Michael Jansen. I'm the founder and CEO of Cityzenith. Thank you to everybody for attending this webinar. We're very excited to be sharing our story with you today and talking a bit about an investment opportunity that we have. And we're excited to be here. We had over 300 people sign up, so thank you very much for doing that. From all over the world, from Europe, from Asia, from the West Coast of the United States, the East Coast, all around. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to be sharing a story with you today about our company, Cityzenith, and what we do. We focus on leveraging something called digital twin technology to help decarbonize the built environment, buildings, cities, and infrastructure. So we're going to explain how we do that today, why we do that, why that's an interesting approach to solving this problem, and how it's been getting traction around the industry. Urban digital twins themselves, or digital twins, are virtual replicas of real things connected to the data in and around them. And you hear about digital twins now being used around the industry, from around industries, from oil and gas to medical science to transport, etc. We focus on urban digital twins, or twins specifically for buildings and infrastructure, a unique ecosystem. And there are reasons that we do that. What they do is because they're connected to the data around them and they have analytics capabilities, digital twins can help optimize all areas of design and planning, construction, and ultimately the ongoing operations and maintenance of buildings over their entire life cycle, which has never been done before, helping to optimize and save money at each of those steps. So you'll be reading a lot about digital twins generally in the market. We're going to share some figures with you about market statistics right now, but let me begin by just giving you a kind of a quick overview of what they look like. This is a video.
At Cityzenith, that's what we do.
Let me start this from the beginning. There we go.
39% of global carbon emissions come from the buildings in our cities. Currently, less than 2% of America's 6 million office buildings are green. What if we could help buildings, infrastructure, and cities reach net zero faster, without risk, and at a fraction of the cost? At Cityzenith, that's what we do. Our Smart World platform leverages cutting-edge AI to automate the complex decarbonization process. Powerful 3D visualization tools help clients analyze and predict performance in real time, simplifying financial and operational decision-making. Thanks to our partnership with the City of Las Vegas, our Las Vegas digital twin features an unprecedented level of real-time sustainability data. Outside buildings, sensors monitor complex metrics, feeding data continuously into SmartWorld, including information about traffic density and air quality, helping planners, developers, and city officials make Las Vegas a more efficient, sustainable, and enjoyable city. Inside buildings, SmartWorldOS allows users to optimize their operational and energy systems, ensuring occupants enjoy a high-quality environment. Cityzenith's new SmartWorldOS Net Zero module continuously monitors clients' energy consumption, tenant behavior, and renewables performance, making it simple to purchase high-quality, verified carbon offsets to ensure properties maintain net zero compliance, providing the only true end-to-end net zero solution for building owners today. Cityzenith. We pledge to make the built environment a cleaner, safer, more efficient place for all. Join us.
There we go. Sorry. This is a new software we're using now called Demio. Thank you for accommodating us. I'm getting used to it myself. We'll get to all of your questions later, and thank you for the tips in the chat. I can see them all. So let me continue. And by the way, that video is also available on our Cityzenith YouTube channel, along with a lot of other project videos, which you're welcome to look at anytime. So regarding digital twins and the value that they provide to businesses, this is figures from an Ernst & Young report. The benefits of digital twins today to buildings and infrastructure are significant. Operational savings or costs reduced by 35%, productivity improved significantly by 20% or more, sometimes 80%. And also they're used now to cut emissions, to take that very complex process, automate it, and make it more efficient. There was a report recently in Forbes talking about urban digital twins specifically, or digital twins used at the scale of the city, which predicted that 500 major world cities would rely on digital twins for daily operations by 2026, which is, it's most of the big ones. Over $250 billion in city planning, development, and operating costs will be saved over that time period. And that's driving the market right now. Digital twins just a couple of years ago was a $3 billion market. It's predicted now to hit $48 billion by 2026 and $70 billion by 2027. We as a company, you'll start to hear more and more about digital twins. Are you guys hearing my sound? I'm getting some things back here. I'm getting some notes you can't hear sound. Frank, you can hear me. Everyone's saying they can hear fine. Yes, sound is good. Okay, so some folks are saying that they can't hear. Maybe that was an earlier message. Okay, good. All right, so I'll continue. As a company, we focus on buildings and infrastructure, and specifically on the decarbonization problem today. I'll explain how that works. But the inconvenient truth is that buildings in cities are the biggest polluters. They're 70–85% of emissions in cities, about 40% of overall emissions, and 3/4 of the buildings that we have here in America have to be retrofit to meet new ESG and emission standards being passed by cities around the country. Today, the existing building stock in the country, only 1.7% of our buildings meet those standards. So 98.3% do not. And fewer than 0.01% of our buildings are actually truly net zero. It's almost still an experimental stage, even though now cities are mandating that we're all going to go net zero. We know that 80% of the problems are buildings, but yet we're at this very experimental stage with no real path. The way to get to net zero is by doing a few things. If you're a building owner, a manager, or operator, one is you have to implement a smart building or an energy saving technology that will typically cut your energy bills by anywhere from 15 to 25%. And then maximize the use of on-site or off-site renewable energies. And those can be a variety of things. And then to get to actual net zero, if that's a mandate or a concern, to then buy high value qualified carbon credits to offset that total dependence on fossil fuels. And then all that has to be continuously monitored and certified every year. You don't flip a switch and get to net zero. It's actually a series of processes, construction projects, retrofits, equipment being switched out, new systems being put in. These projects take time. They can take months, even a few years. The problem today with the retrofit market is that even though it's a massive opportunity, it's still too expensive. The retrofits average $2 to $7 per foot. And if you consider the fact that a building owner pays about $2.10 in America for energy today, this is a big number. This is a substantial capital outlay. And as such, the payback periods in these types of projects tend to be 10 to 15 years, which is too long, when the ownership of the of real estate actually, or the top of the pyramid, called the LPs, are looking for returns within 3 to 5 years. And so as such, less than 1% of annual operating revenues are actually reinvested in retrofits, and that needs to more than triple in order for buildings to meet these performance standards. So we needed a technology platform that can manage and optimize this entire process from end to end. That's what's really missing. The green building retrofit consulting market today is expensive, it's labor intensive, it's risky, and it has a lot of small players using different standards, thousands of different tools. And as a result, building owners, they hesitate to commit to these substantial capital outlays with all this uncertainty. We're trying to address all of that. Too many pieces of software, too much data, and no common platform for all of it. That's why we developed SmartWorld, to be able to integrate these key pieces of technology, building systems, public data, occupancy data, et cetera, electricity data, into a common framework to allow us to optimize the whole process of actually retrofitting. And digital twins are a great answer for this. I would argue it's been difficult to do any of this before them. What digital twins do is they're great at aggregating data from multiple sources into a common, in our case, 3D framework, and then run simulations, also even manage complex applications. In our case, we focus on decarbonization. We have a platform plus module approach, almost like you have, here's a visual aid, an iPhone plus apps approach. We have the platform, SmartWorldOS is basically the phone. And then we sell modules to owners that do different things for them. And the first focus is on the decarbonization module. We also have in development a repositioning module. One of the big problems in states and American cities is, in addition to decarbonizing, is also trying to figure out what to do with all this vacant retail and office space as a result of e-commerce and COVID. Everything has changed. So we are developing a module to help tell them what to do to reposition their real estate to be successful. And the different types of applications like this. What we can do in the decarbonization module is that we can deploy multiple strategies, like using this, say, energy management system with that financial strategy, with this monitoring strategy, to optimize and make the right choices, both operationally and financially, in the form of a report that is then continuously monitored and recertified. So this is powerful stuff, and something that really hasn't been done before. To date, the company is kind of going through a transition from moving out of doing project-based pilots. We've done 3 or 4, 5 years of those now, maybe 4, which help us to build the technology and get experience that we need for something like this. And we work with property owners and facility managers, infrastructure companies. We did the big East-West rail network from Oxford to Cambridge in the UK project with W.S. Atkins, energy firms. I'll talk more about that in a bit. Architects like Norman Foster and many others, and even some entire governments we've done these projects with in the past. Airports, seaports, big infrastructure things. I mean, the company is called Cityzenith, and for us, we do anything that's city size. So a lot of our work is mini cities. If you think of an airport or a college campus as a mini city, that's a more likely target for us than an entire actual, say, metropolis, even though we have in a few cases done greenfield city work. So we have some partners. Many of you may know from the announcements that we were invited into the World Economic Forum, into their Net Zero Carbon Cities program, which we were very happy to be a part of. We're members of the Digital Twin Consortium as well. We are members now, I think it's a Smart Cities network in the United States. There's a big show coming up in Orlando, Smart Cities show dedicated to just digital twins for the first time ever. It's our annual Smart Cities Week. And we are gold sponsoring that and meeting with about a dozen cities to introduce our solutions. So we have a bunch of partners now at an institutional level that really help us. And our business model is really threefold. We do large scale projects. We do form partnerships where we white label SmartWorld to a large company to distribute it as their own. And we also now are implementing what we call a platform strategy, where in certain cities, we are giving the technology to constituents or agencies in the city that deal with green buildings, and then using it as an opportunity to sell the solution through to local building owners. And we call this the freemium model, because there are modules that are free to cities and other users in this model, and the revenues are generated by modules that are sold to local building owners. Current projects, we've recently updated this. We're moving ahead with the City of Los Angeles project with our partners there, the Los Angeles Better Buildings Challenge people. Very talented group, and we're focusing on an area of the city around Bunker Hill and a project in the middle. there we're looking at a variety of things, but ideally implementing this technology so that they have a tool to make available to local building owners that's convenient and effective for them. And that's our strategy, because as you know, or maybe you don't, building owners, communities tend to run locally. So there's a Chicago building owner community, New York, Philadelphia, so on and so forth. So the land and expand strategy with the city is all about creating stickiness and validity, while then selling through to the entire local market. We have a new project coming up. We haven't announced yet. We're going to. I can't tell you who the partners are yet, and I will never be able to tell you who the project owner is, but it's a fabulous project in Chicago with very high profile partners in the middle of the city. And we're going to be working with a very high profile developer and on a very interesting project. And that's about all I can say. Very excited about it because of the scope of this one. It's in our backyard. I happen to be based in Chicago. I can drive to these meetings, and the team that they're putting together is fantastic. We're very excited about it. And of course, our ongoing project in Las Vegas, which is now completed its first phase and will soon start phase 2. In the past, we've done work with groups like Cushman & Wakefield on a project for the Hyatt Hotel Group in New York City to display asset data in a 3D model. We did a project with W.S. Atkins in the UK, and I mentioned the East-West Rail project, which was about having a single continuous project data map that was live for a $2 billion, I think 100 kilometer high-speed bullet train project. And then we did an entire city for the first time ever for us in Amaravati, which is in South India, a new capital city that was envisioned to be something like the Chandigarh, if you know India, which was their new capital city that designed by Corbusier, 100 years ago, whatever it was. This is going to be the next great capital city, designed by Norman Foster, and they used a digital twin for some of the energy analysis pieces in the housing districts of that area, of that city. So I mentioned this net zero module for building owners. The purpose of these pilots, when we have partners with cities, but we have a commercial building owner at the heart at each one of these pilots, whose data we will be using to prove out the business case for large scale commercial owners. Right now, the anticipation is that the fees that a client pays to us over its lifetime will begin with 6 cents per square foot and go up to 18 cents per square foot, but the value that we can deliver will exceed $3 per square foot. And it'll be the purpose of these projects to demonstrate all of those numbers. We have announced the campaign we call Clean Cities, Clean Future about 8 or 9 months ago. And so now there are 4 cities that are part of it, and all in the States. Chicago will be next. And then after the event in Orlando, we'll know about the next few, and we want to get to about 8. So with the release of our new release, which is SmartWorldOS 3, that's coming out next spring, late spring 2022. We'll be launching in 7 cities or 8 cities at the same time. The climate bill, there's been a lot of talk about this because it's a big deal for companies that do things like what we do. We think that there's a big opportunity not only for us to get access to some of that funding ourselves because of the nature of our work, but also the loans that are being made available to building owners to upgrade their energy infrastructure will make it easier and easier and easier for customers to acquire our solution, because we will tell them exactly what to do with that money. So it's actually perfect for us. And I don't know if you saw, but CNBC ran something about this, which was really terrific. And they had picked 5 companies in the US to profile who would benefit from the climate bill or the anti-inflation bill, Inflation Reduction Act. And we were one of the 5. So there might be a slide on this in here, I'm not sure, but it was kind of cool. It was just a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned to you the compelling offering. This is the breakdown of the value that we provide in terms of increased rental premiums, increased sales premiums, NOI increases, which are significant, and then the reduction in operating expenses just from the decarbonization module. On the right side, you see our costs in orange, and the left side, you see the value we provide, up to $3 per square foot. And they're paying 2 cents per square foot for the core use of the platform, and an average 4 or 5 cents per foot per module. Over time, they will have 3 to 4 modules per customer, and that comes to an average of 18 cents as we envision it. So the savings can grow substantially. Each module has its own value prop. So the way that we do this is that each value will deliver a certain financial value, and you add them up and you get more and potentially get aggregate value from using multiple modules at the same time. The company has been in the media a lot, probably why some of you are here. Been very lucky to have our mission to take on this problem become popular, and for our company to be considered as one of the leaders in the space tackling this problem, and I'm proud to lead this company. This is the little CNBC bit that ran a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was. Yes, there has been a tremendous amount of institutional investor interest in the company. Some of you, our existing investors, may know that we're in a diligence process with a major organization right now, an energy company, to invest significantly in the company. And we also had interest from a major defense player and a major energy equipment maker. So it's all going the way we'd like it to go. My last business was a bit more linear, product and service business, and it was invested by Sequoia Capital and Silicon Valley Bank. And so my first go around, I learned how to build a big successful company and to take it from a desk and a phone to, in that case, 700 people and an exit. And this time around, I think the knowledge of those first successes, I was able to give my investors in the first company and the earliest investors 17x their money back in 3 years. And my very first investor was from the Chicago area, who I went out and met at a Caribou Coffee and showed him the business plan, and he gave me $100,000, which to me was an unbelievable amount of money at the time. And we were off and running. And 3 years later, I went back and saw him at the same Caribou Coffee, and I gave him a check for $1.7 million. So these things happen out there, and some of us have been through the process of making it happen, and we know what it takes. Again, I'm grateful for the opportunity I've been given to do this and for all the support that we've received. I mentioned we focused on building an infrastructure. I think the key thing here to note is that policy in American cities specifically is changing. Europe is already ahead of us, as it were, in terms of regulations they have for building owners around emissions and energy use. And it varies country by country, but this has been policy there for years. Canada as well, since 2008. But now in the last 1 year in America, Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., Ithaca, who else? Los Angeles is coming. We've all passed legislation requiring, St. Louis, legislation requiring building owners to cut emissions either dramatically or completely. So I don't know if you know that, but that's a big deal. So that's going to push, it's creating this $200 billion decarbonization market that we hope that we can be a major player in. So far, so good. We've had some big companies come through. We're in partnership discussions with Shell, also with, that shouldn't say Steiner, that should say Schneider Electric. Sorry about that. It's not Steiner. Schneider Electric, the big French company. We are also in discussions with Lockheed Martin, who reached out to us. We've had 3 different meetings. Capgemini, we've just been appointed to their net zero, special net zero committee, which I helped sit on the board of, to work with them as a systems integrator. It can do anything to help jointly promote these types of solutions. And we use software. We have big software providers that help us, including Amazon and Epic Games. We have goals for revenue. If you look at the next several years, we've done about $1 million in pilot projects total over the last few years. And we will start generating revenue from the new release and the new model, which is all SaaS-based, as I showed you earlier, into 2023. We project 2.6 million now, and that's just going to grow significantly. And with as we call these goals, by the way, and we run a regulation A+. We don't make projections. We actually establish goals. So these are basically our 5 and 6 year goals for the next few years, and we think we can achieve them. I think that is the end of our presentation, and I am now almost at the half hour, so I'm going to probably pause right now and take a few questions. The best way to do this is to put them in the chat, and I will read them in the order in which they were given to me. So let me just refer over to the chat and see if I can start taking any questions. Now is the time to ask if you have any, ladies and gentlemen. Take your time. And I typically like to stay here until I've answered all the questions. Okay, question from Peter. Is there an investment coming in from a global energy company? Is the DD now complete? And will this mean the end of the round in share price? Well, you asked a great question. We have now submitted the DD package to the energy company as of last Thursday. Okay, they'll probably give us an answer within the next 3 to 4 months. And if they fund, it'll be in 6 to 8 months. That's what we've been told. So I'll update you then. We did get the package off and we're very happy about it. It looked great. And now that process will continue. As they say, or as they said, if they have any questions, they'll come back to us. But this is very exciting. And the other good news is that now have a completely updated due diligence room, or data room, as they say, that will be able to, we can share with anybody and the other parties we're talking to as well. So a couple of things on this. Because of this diligence going on, we will be taking the Regulation A+, which you can invest in now, down in a few days. And then we'll be putting it back up in about a month or so. There are some things happening. I think if you've been in previous webinars of ours, you know that there is a potential change in share price happening. And while we go through this diligence phase, we're going to take it down as we restructure the offering and put it back up. That'll take about roughly a month or so is our guess. So if you have interest, it's something that you should do sooner rather than later. I think coming from a few days from now for a period of time, that's not going to be possible. However, during the down period, if you're an accredited investor, and there's a technical definition of what accredited means, you still will be able to invest directly in the company during that time while this change of offering terms is being taken care of. So thank you very much for asking that question. Now, also in your question is if we get the term sheet, will the round come down? Will we end the round? The answer is yes. From what we understand, it will. In fact, it will come down as a condition of the term sheet because the new investing company will have plenty of capital to handle our capital needs, and it will be the end as we understand right now. Okay, I am going through the messages here. There are a bunch about the mics. Okay, yes, you all will be getting a copy of this sent to you afterwards as a live recording. Okay, question from Charles. Will Cityzenith's technology be able to help with situations like the current energy crisis one day? Is it especially bad here in the UK because our buildings are so inefficient? Yeah, good question, Charles. It's not just the UK, but buildings around the world. It's remarkable. The two main things that we need to do to make buildings more efficient are actually kind of simple. One is seal them better. The other one is electrify them. And 30% of the energy, and the average is 30% of energy is lost, through the window mullions and through sill seams and things like that. So yes, I think that digital twins will be used to assess and monitor these over time. And the key thing is even knowing it's happening right now. I mean, if we will look back at some point in the future when every building is monitored, and every building is on an EKG, and that's coming. And we will go look back and say, we fought wars over our terrible use of energy. I mean, 30% of the energy we use gets wasted out the window itself. 50% of that energy is wasted in transmission from source to the home. So by the time the energy actually gets to you, 2/3 of it or more is gone, right? And yet, we're mining and we're, doing all kinds of things to make that fuel source available, but yet we're being incredibly inefficient with its actual final use. So that's why smart grids are becoming so interesting, because they can eliminate that transmission cost. And that's why digitized homes or digitized assets like digital twins for buildings and cities are also becoming so interesting. Question from Morgan: does your potential investment from an energy company affect my ability to invest in Cityzenith, or will I have to wait till you go public? Yes, Morgan. If once they come in, that will be it, and you would then have to wait until we went public. If we went public, it's also a possibility that the company gets acquired by the energy company itself or by somebody else like them. So I can't say for sure exactly what would happen in such a case, but it would be quite unlikely you'd be able to invest again as an individual after that, just from my experience. Question from Harriet: in terms of decarbonization, how quick are governments and institutions really moving from fossil fuels to renewables? Well, it depends on the governments and where. I mean, what I see happening today around the world is a lot of individually successful experiments, and some countries and some cities doing a better job than others for whom it's a bigger priority. So you can point to a number of projects here in the U.S. from Boston to Orlando that are fantastic renewable projects. Orlando has a solar pond now, I think the biggest in the country, and it's working. But how quickly is that happening? I don't think it's happening quickly enough, for sure. I think the cities and municipalities, states, counties, even owners, there's a lack of, I think, quality examples of successful projects but as those continue to come online, I think they'll be more easy to replicate. So I know that wasn't a terrific answer. I think we still have a lot of work to do, but there's some good things being done. Maybe that's the summary. A question from James: how competitive is your market? Established players, etc. We don't believe that there's any really good, high quality digital twin product out there right now in the market. There's a lot of repurposed CAD, BIM, GIS, and other technologies that companies have. I would put certain big competitors into that bucket, potentially Autodesk with some of their things, Esri with some of their things, Bentley with some of their things, Dassault out of France with some of their things, and maybe a few others. And then you have smaller companies who are doing technology and innovative things which are more niche. We don't really directly compete against. There's a company called Willow, which does more managed services, and that's not us. We're not pro services. We are software as a service. There's Futuron out of Norway, which is a really good company, but they focus on oil and gas. So, and there are others. And maybe IES out of Scotland could be considered a competitor. Different levels. We're definitely seeing more and more because the digital twin market is hot. And so as a company, James, we're focusing not just on projects and revenue, but on technology and developing IP also. So by the release of SW SmartWorldOS 3, we'll have 7 unique pieces of IP that will also help drive value to the company, make us a stickier and more valuable business generally, and also potentially a more interesting acquisition because of the quality of the technology itself. So as a CEO, because this is a very difficult technology challenge, our CTO, who joined us early in the year, came out of Lockheed Martin. He was the principal researcher at Lockheed Martin. And then for I think 9 or 10 years, he went to Starbucks, where he was head of data science and IoT. And he went to Acuity Brands, where he was head of digital twin and IoT and data science. And then Lockheed called him up and asked him to come back and be head of digital twin at Lockheed again. And he joined us. And so he's been dealing with these complex systems of systems issues for a long time. And he and I are like, we're like almost, brothers from another mother, as they say. The first time we met in Chicago, when I flew him out, all the frustrations I had with trying to build this technology, he had the same frustrations at Lockheed, and we knew what the answers were, and we came together, and I think it's been a fantastic partnership. So, it's a bit of a kind of a divergence from your question, but it is we've been lucky to bring in some of the best talent to solve this problem. We can be nimble as a startup. And I think it's what helps to keep us, with an edge. Question from Eric: what feedback are you getting from users of the platform? Also, what percentage of your growth is organic versus sales and marketing? Well, I think that's a question for a business which is probably 3 or 4 years down the line, but I can answer kind of generically. This must be a late stage investor. And the platform itself from V1 and V2 was a big success. That's how we got funded into V3. I think we also learned what we needed to do that we couldn't do from before, which became key features and a focus for V3. So we're very happy with that. We do a lot of marketing, and a lot of people come in the door. So we probably have incoming requests for major interest from a major organization once every 2 days, and something maybe more mid-range almost every day. And that's a lot of incoming for a small company. So our strategy has been, rather than to direct sell, which could be very expensive, to hiring 15 or 20 salespeople, let them run around and try to talk to people. We actually invested instead in an online campaign to build awareness of what we could do and let the people come to us that needed that. And it's been really interesting. I would say it doesn't negate the need for a sales team, but it certainly flips the math and will allow us to have a much smaller sales team, because a sales team simply needs to field the incoming requests. But of course, it involves having a fantastically successful marketing campaign. And as you saw, we've been in the media 1,000 times, and I think we've been pretty successful there. Question from Emily, but a great question. Thank you. A question from Emily: do you have plans to go public? Well, it's definitely an option, Emily. One of two things are our goals. One is to go public, or to sell at a good price to a strategic acquirer, and both are possibilities. It is more likely that we would sell to an acquirer this type of business over the next, say, few years than go public, but we certainly could as well go public when the time came. Both are goals. Question from Angel: are we going to have an opportunity to cash out anytime soon? Well, it depends. There's a couple of things happening. We're not sure how long we're going to keep the A+ open. If we keep it open longer, then we may allow some investors to sell their shares in the secondary market. We can't really answer that question until we know more. So once we do, though, we'll be able to answer that question in greater detail. And you can write to info@cityzenith.com and we'll get back to you. A question from Douglas: are cities in China showing serious interest? We do get a lot of interest from China. Chinese construction companies, Chinese architecture firms, Chinese developers. I would like to go out to China when the time comes. Some of you may or may not know from reading about my background that I lived in China for 4 years. I speak Chinese. I used to be actually quite fluent. I don't know where I'm at today. It's been a long time. And I started my career there for the Portman companies, working on some gigantic city-scale projects, mixed-use developments, hotels, retail, all this when I was in my early 20s. And that's how I got fascinated by cities, because I went to China. And everything was very, very big, and it went fast. And I was 23 years old, staring up at these things, fascinated, and here we are today. To do China correctly, we need to be further along than we are, and then we need a big partner over there. So if we get the deal from the big energy company, I think within 12 or 18 months, we'll be trying to set something up in China. I believe it'd be a massive market for us. We know from our work with the World Economic Forum who all the major players in China are. I sit on the same committee with them. I was appointed to the World Economics Forum Global Advisory Committee for Digital Twins. There's only 10 people in the world on that committee. Basically, I don't want to blow my own horn, but the 10 people who know the most in the world about this stuff. and they put me on that committee. And there's 3 or 4 really qualified scholars from China on the committee as well. And because of my experience there, having lived there and speaking the language, I'd be happy to go back. But we have to do it a certain way. There are a lot of concerns with software in China around IP protection, all those kinds of things. So that it really only can be done with a very strong partner. But it's a great idea. What are the profit margin expected in these goals? Well, let me see if I can pull that up. We did not show that. One second here. I actually have that document, I think. Bear with me. Okay. We know, we just sent the diligence documents in, so we know. Okay. So, EBITDA gets positive in year 3 at 2%, goes to 18%, and then goes to 32% in year 6 and continues, SaaS model. So our model is highly efficient from years 4, 5, 6 and out, because typical SaaS comp model. And yet what's good about us is that we don't need $100 million in the early years, because we have professional services in the early years that actually give us a lot of revenue too, especially during the digital twin build out phase. So I hope that was able to answer your question and I didn't mess this up. Okay. Question from David. Will you be sending a copy of this webinar to everybody? Yes, David. Everybody will get a copy of this webinar. Oh, Jack already answered that. Question from James. Thanks for your time. We will revert if you have any further questions. Yes, absolutely. James, if you have any further questions, we definitely would love to talk to you more and give you whatever information you need. Question from Kazem. Are you getting any encouragement, positive feedback, or financial support from the government? Yeah, we just talked about this. We had a board meeting this morning, and the answer is that we haven't yet. We believe we now will, because of all the money coming into the industry for decarbonization, net zero, sustainability, green infrastructure, green roads, green cities. It's hundreds of billions around the world, hundreds of billions. And we can deploy anywhere, right? You know, those of you who don't know me, which is probably most, that's why you're here. I spent 25 years overseas. So I did my undergraduate at Yale and my postgraduate at Cambridge in the UK. Then I went overseas for 25 years. I traveled to over 100 countries. So I'm an American with all this other stuff inside. So for me, when I say I'm going to take this thing globally, I'm going to take this thing globally. I know exactly where to go to do what where. And there are opportunities for us because I'm in multiple countries for funding, in Singapore, in China itself, in Hong Kong, in India, where we have a lot of contacts, in the UK, across Europe. We actually have a UK registered company. And of course, across the US, we qualify. So absolutely. And more it will become part of our strategy. You know, non-dilutive financing plus the validity of a good project. It's all good stuff. Oh, a question from Eric. I'm not a late stage investor. I actually invested in your first Start Engine round. Thank you for answering. Sounds like you're firing on all cylinders. What is still your biggest challenge right now? Oh, good question, Eric. What's the biggest challenge right now? I think it's all eyes on SmartWorldOS 3. And there's a lot of work in putting out a world-class product. You know, there just is. The team is growing. It was going to grow to about 30 people. And the kind of people we need, Eric, are not, you know, they're hard to find. Prashanta, our CTO, will spend 3 hours in an interview to reject somebody because they don't have all the chops we need to work on Smart World. And it's almost like a matrix of skill sets. So I'll say that of all the challenges, work is coming in, the media is great, investors have been good to us. So what did we decide to do about this? We decided that, well, at this stage to start welcoming, we don't usually, because I'm like, we got to keep it a tribe of experts in the family kind of guy, but we're now beginning to work with people who might be part-time, but give us what we need and help us accelerate. So right now, my biggest challenge is accelerating development with, the full squad that we need. And we're at about 65 to 70% capacity right now. And I'd like to be at 90% capacity. It's probably gonna take us another couple of months to get at full capacity. So maybe even 3 months. So I'm starting to think about different ways of staffing that. Thank you, Douglas. Question from Marcius. Is there any possible mergers that could potentially happen between Cityzenith and somebody else? Yeah, there are things that could happen between us and another company. There was a very big European energy company almost acquired us in 2018, and their plan was to merge us with another one of their portfolio companies. It's a company we compete against, actually, Siradel, Siradel. So they're out of France. We don't really compete against them a lot because they're in France, but they were going to merge us with Siradel, make one big, digital twin company out of it. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of possibilities, and that will come up too. Yeah. Question from Douglas. I am waiting to hear back on wiring funds to bonus program, if not too late. What is benefit to bonus versus normal investing? The benefit to the bonus was you get more shares because there's extra shares involved in the bonus share round, Douglas. And if you write to us, somebody will give you a little share calculator that we created, so you can input the number of shares you'd like to invest and see, or the amount of money you want to invest and see how many shares it translates into. It ends up being a really good deal. Question from Chris. Who are your major competitors and what percentage of your market share are you expecting to attain? I did go through this a little bit earlier, Chris, so in the interest of getting to everyone's question, I mentioned the big ones and the small ones. The percentage of market share that we intend to attain is, if you look at what we're projecting by 2020, it's not large. It's because the market will be so diverse. I could calculate it for you. I think our revenues, one second here. 2027, we know. One second. Okay. To 200, okay, I'll tell you. It's going to seem small. 250 or 260 million in revenues by the time the market's at 70 billion. Okay. So I don't know what that comes to, but probably less than 1%. But in any case, I should tell you how diverse the market is going to be. Part of it's a definition of what digital twins are, and our actual market will probably not be the 70 billion digital twin market, but it will be more defined as time goes on. The digital twin transport market, digital twin building market, right? And we want to lead our space. I mean, if you talk about my market, which is building as an infrastructure, I would like to have 20 or 30%. I want to dominate that. Just an idea. Would it be open to going on more tech podcasts to appeal to more tech talent? Yes. Great idea, Eric. I'll do whatever it takes to get to the right people and have them. A couple of reasons why. We use recruiters, Eric, which is fine, but it's expensive. Also, there's nothing better than a talented person who saw something about your company or heard or watched a video and then reached out to you because they're already interested in what you're doing. That's a great answer. I hope my team is paying attention. I'm sure they are. When do you see, this question from David, when do you see Cityzenith issuing stock shares and at what price per share? Well, if you've invested in the company, you have shares. If you invested in the Republic round only, you have something called safe notes, which will convert into common shares at the end of this A+. So whenever we formally close this A+ with the SEC, then your shares will turn into, your safe notes will turn into common shares. If you recently invested in the special offering and took advantage of the bonus shares, then as soon as we get qualified by the SEC, it will then convert into your common shares at that point. Question from John. You recently referenced the bonus share purchase program. I recently bought more shares, and when I did, I was told that the bonus program was no longer available. No, John, I'm sorry. It's still happening. In fact, we're about to extend the bonus share program out. We basically started with accredited investors, and now we're going to move on to all of our investors in the next few days. You're absolutely welcome to invest. I'm sorry you heard that. Maybe there was some confusion. Then thank you for letting me know. A question from Marcius. Any hope for dividends? Marcius, you know, in startup companies where we're investing heavily and growing, probably not immediately. I think the two things could happen for you in terms of getting cash out. One is obviously a big exit of some kind, and the other is a sale through a secondary market. And the secondary market then allows anybody holding common shares to sell at the price at that time. So that will be an opportunity for some people that need liquidity as soon as we do that. Once we get, I think, another million or two into the round, I have a tentative plan to do that. So we can then, we'll stay in touch and we'll let everybody know. A question from Emily. If I'm a non-accredited investor, I'm eligible to invest. Once we take the round down, Emily, no. So only once we take it down, so you've got a few days left. It'll have to be taken down, and then it's only for accredited investors, and you'll have to wait till we put it back up, or any non-accredited investor will have to wait. Any more questions? I just think I've come to the end of the list, but I want to give people another minute or so. Please do. If you've got any final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, I always like to ask people. Feel free to put them in the chat channel. I'll try to answer them. Question or comment from Eric. This week in startups would be a podcast to go on. Not sure if you've reached out to them, but I'll put a plug in for you on Twitter. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure our marketing team is listening to that, and they've already made a note. So thank you very much for that kind recommendation. I'm always grateful to our shareholders. Listen, we're very approachable. I welcome all people, all ideas, and I've always engaged my shareholders as part of the team, and I've always welcomed your participation, and I've always tried my best to communicate with people and keep them in the loop. So I appreciate your doing things like this. It means a lot. Anything else here? Okay. I think I'll wrap up if nothing comes through. I wanted to thank everybody again for doing an amazing job of asking questions, and I love answering these questions. And if you have more, you can write to us at info@cityzenith.com. To learn more about the opportunity to invest, just go to our website, which is www.cityzenith.com, and up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button you can press that says Invest. That's the offering page. You can have a look and see all the information about the opportunity, including the SEC filings at the bottom. And you can walk yourself through the invest sequence if you choose to invest. It's a few steps, and you have to put some personal information in order to complete your investment. I don't know if you're familiar with this process, but it's a very regulated process. There's a broker-dealer involved. In our case, it's called Rialto Markets, that has to qualify every investor. Your shares then will be held in a share register, which is managed by a company called VStock. They have an entire register of every single Cityzenith shareholder with your individual holdings in it. And every time you invest again, it goes into that register. So it's kind of neatly managed by them. Thank you very, very much. It's really a pleasure. And again, you'll be getting a copy of this just in case you missed any part of it. Want to share it with somebody else. And there's one more coming up in 2 weeks. So stay in touch. And again, very grateful from Cityzenith and the team for all the, especially for the existing investors, but also for the new ones who are considering us. Without you, we wouldn't have done none of this. And I'm on a journey and a mission to prove that we took money from people that believed in the mission and scaled it to something very, very big. And I'm still on that mission. And I think we're going to get real close. Thanks very much again. I appreciate it.